Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Jayhawker Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Bukaty, and I'm really excited to get to our guest today because we're going to talk a little baseball. You know, this weather, if you're living pretty much anywhere in America right now, has been freezing cold. And, pitchers and catchers in Major League Baseball have reported college baseball is getting fired up, and it just starts to make you daydream that spring isn't that far away. So I guess they still call it, it's not quite hot stove season, but sit around a hot stove and take in the Jayhawker Podcast today because we're going to talk with the head coach of the KU baseball program, Dan Fitzgerald, here in just a moment. As always, I want to make sure that I thank our sponsors. Our Jayhawker Podcast is brought to you by the University of Kansas Health System, by Black & Veatch, and by the Next Generation 10G Network, only from Xfinity. The future starts now. And with that, I want to bring in Dan Fitzgerald. Everybody refers to you, Coach, as Fitz whenever I get emails about you and all that. Do you prefer Dan? Do you prefer Coach? Do you prefer Fitz? How do we start this thing off?
Oh, you can call me whatever you want. I think my players call me Fitz. I think my wife's the only person in the world that calls me Dan. My mom still calls me Danny, but those are dead giveaways. So everyone pretty much calls me Fitz. But Nate, call me whatever you want. Great to
What's
be on.
What's your mom call you when you're in trouble?
I'm not getting in trouble with my mom anymore, but it's there was a lot of Daniel back in the day.
Yeah, I figured that might be the case. Hey, listen, we're going to get into the baseball team because you guys are off to a good start already. You're down in Texas. We'll talk about that. You're coming off of a really big step forward for the program in terms of the wins, and you've got exciting players. We're going to get to all those things coming up. So everybody, please stay tuned for that. But I want to start off. You and I were chatting before we got started here. This is not baseball weather right now, and I know you're in Texas. But you were telling me, what is it? What's the weather right now where you guys are in Corpus Christi?
Well, the feel like is 25, and when we were practicing this morning, the feel like was 18. So I thought I was getting ready for hockey practice back in the day. It is. I mean, this is not beach weather. I know that.
Yeah, you go down to Texas and you're hoping to get out of the cold this time of year, and there's no escaping it right now. Just if it makes you feel any better, about 20 degrees warmer where you are than where we are here in Kansas City, but still not exactly baseball weather. It is hockey weather, and you have a hockey background. For those that don't know, tell me about your journey as a hockey and baseball player into college.
Yeah, I grew up in Edina, Minnesota, which is a hockey powerhouse, and was a 3-sport athlete at Edina High School. I played football, hockey, and baseball. And my dad passed away about 4 years ago, but the greatest dad ever, but was a baseball fanatic. And I think we might be the only baseball fanatic family from Edina because everyone else is hockey crazy. But, I ended up, getting towards the end of high school and trying to make a decision on what to do and had some opportunities to play the Division I route in hockey. I would have had to have played juniors, and that was a long road. And I was just a third line mucker, man. Like I just good teammate, played hard, and probably spent too much time in the penalty box. And baseball, same thing, just a hard worker. So I was not a phenom talent by any means, but ended up wanting to try to give both a shot. So ended up at the University of St. Thomas, who coincidentally is on our schedule later in March, I believe, maybe April, in which I joke, they're a Division I program now. So in about 10 years, everyone's going to think I was a Division I athlete. So that's a nice perk of them going Division I. But went there and, ended up just playing baseball but yeah, loved hockey growing up. Still love hockey. I still play. Shout out to my boys over there at the KC Ice Center. I still play with some of my pals over there, but yeah, I was fortunate to grow up in a home that loved competing and loved sports, and we really loved each other. So I have very fond memories around the sports world.
Okay, so when you're hitting some good points of commonality here. Had a couple fraternity brothers at the University of Kansas who were from Edina, and they boy, they bragged about the hockey program there like crazy. And they tried to teach me how to skate. And then when I got into covering the Kansas City Royals, Ryan Lefevre, who went to the University of Minnesota, became friends with a bunch of the hockey guys on that team. And he would take me back in the old days. It was King Louie, which isn't there anymore. But Denny Matthews, the voice of the Royals, still played hockey. He might still play to this day, but he played all the way into his 60s. But there was a former Royals player named Matt Stairs. And if you know Matt, he was a slugger who grew up in Bangor, Maine. Yeah. And he would come skate around when he could. And I asked him about it. And he was a junior A-League hockey player, had knee problems. And he said he would have traded his whole baseball career in for one day in the NHL. But it was really interesting to talk to him because he said that hockey players have a tendency to the skill of hitting for power translates to hitting a puck. And I think he said, and he was a left-handed batter. He said there's always left-handed batters that come from playing hockey too. I'm curious if any of that stuff resonates, the stuff that Matt used to tell me about the crossover between hockey and baseball.
Yeah, I'd love to say the power piece, but no, kidding. Really interesting in hockey, there are probably more right-handed people that play hockey left-handed because the top hand on the stick is the stick handling stick, and that's the one that you're maneuvering the puck with, and the bottom hand is just more of a guide hand. So you see a lot of the Canadians who are left-handed, who are right-handed people who played left-handed. And then I think that's it's kind of like batting. It used to be a massive advantage to be a left-handed hitter or a switch hitter, and now you just look at the splits, and they sometimes play out that way, and they oftentimes don't because of the advent of the split finger and the changeup and all that stuff. But there is no question, in the University of Minnesota is probably the greatest picture of it. John Anderson just retired. Ty McDivitt's their new head coach. But if you look at John's career, he's the winningest coach in the history of the Big Ten, and he just had this string of left-handed hitting hockey players that came to Minnesota, and they were. I can think of a bunch of guys that I played against who were like that, and I do think there's a commonality. You also find a lot of really good hockey players that can absolutely hammer a golf ball. Again, I wish I could take credit for some of that too. I don't think I got any of that. I just got a lot of hard work and grit from the sport, but there are definitely some commonalities with. And we see it in some of the players I've coached. You think about a slap shot or a wrist shot where you really have to torque and turn your body. So similar to the swing in terms of how you have to link it up and get your body to work together. So it's just like anything, any rotational sport, it all comes back to that connection.
Well, you used two words that led me to my next question perfectly when you talked about grit and determination, because those are terms that can translate to any sport, right? If you want to be good, you've got to have a team that's gritty and has determination. And I was just asking you before we went on, if you watched, I was sure you did, but if you watched that USA versus Canada hockey game, and that was one of those things, obviously, with the intensity of it, the fights that happened even before they really even, I guess, right when they dropped the puck 9 seconds in, it was going to be a battle of grit and determination. But I'm curious if like when you're a coach watching a sporting event that's so emotionally charged, what was your thought process watching it? And I guess any things that you take away, like, oh man, these guys really showed me something here.
Yeah, I love watching people compete. We didn't have wrestling at my high school, and so the first wrestling match I was the volunteer assistant at the University of Iowa in 2001, and went to an Iowa State wrestling match. The first time I'd ever been to a wrestling match, and when my buddy asked me to go, I'm like, I have zero interest in that. And he's like, I promise you'll love it. And I went and was hooked. And why? Well, it's two people just competing. And I love going to games in Allen Fieldhouse and watching Coach Self coach. Why? Because I get to watch two teams competing, and it's really cool. My seats are behind the visiting bench, so I get to see how different coaches run their bench and how they run their rotations and what their assistants are doing and what their demeanor is like. And so when games are on, Nate, that's my thing. I'm watching and trying to figure out, what are these coaches doing? What are the buttons they're pushing? And then in a game like US Canada, you're watching the best of the best. I mean, you're watching, I don't know how many future Hall of Famers are out there, but you're watching guys compete at the highest level against other guys competing at the highest level. And I think if you watch it like a student, like I try to, you take stuff away where you get to see all the little things that, if you're a hockey fan and you listen to the great coaches talk about, stopping movement of the puck and how do you disrupt things in the neutral zone and how do you get the wings low enough for a breakout, and you get to see that stuff in action in a game. So yeah, man, the other coaches at KU, I am routinely trying to sneak into their practices to see what they're doing and how they're doing it. And, I've been so blessed with great accessibility to go over and watch Lance practice whenever, watch Brandon practice whenever. Ray was so incredibly welcoming anytime I went in there, and Bill's always been so awesome. Being able to watch Nate practice, and I can't get enough of watching other coaches coach and see what buttons they push. And then honestly, there's a little bit of when you see the stressful environment that another group is going through, it kind of normalizes it for you. Because I think sometimes, you get caught in the 6th, 7th, 8th inning of a game where, your heart's beating 5,000 times a minute, where you get to realize, no, this is normal. This is what every sport goes through. So yeah, man, I watch all that stuff and try to learn as much as I can.
And for our audience, Coach was not referring to watching me practice when he said Nate. That's the soccer coach who they had a great season this year as well. And another example of a lot of the things that are going well with the athletics department at Kansas right now. And that leads us, let's talk about your program now. I just thought that was kind of a fun little side, bar to start with. You're going into your third season. And there's a lot of different ways to look at what you've already done. But let's just start with maybe the building blocks. You guys, with last year's, the number of wins that you got in the regular season was record breaking. The numbers of wins that you got in the conference was a high for since 2019, I believe. So obviously you're taking steps. Take away the numbers, in terms of the way you envision a program. What are you maybe most excited about in terms of the building blocks you've built so far that you realize that you feel like you're ready to build upon for this year?
Yeah, it's in baseball, it's such a numbers driven game. And I think numbers oftentimes tell the story. And there are times when you just line them up. You look at the splits. We had to do it this weekend. They threw 3 lefty starters against us, and we stacked the lineup with righties because the split said to do so. And early in the year, oftentimes that's the right thing to do. But then there are a bunch of other times where the numbers say something, but 26 years of winning and losing games teaches you a lot too. I think to answer your question, I think the easiest way to do it is to point out that, I have been around Hall of Fame coaches my entire career. I mean, I played for amazing coaches. I've worked for amazing coaches. And when I look at my last 2 bosses, Jay Johnson at LSU and Dan Hefner at DBU, those are 2 of the greatest coaches of our entire generation in college baseball. So I got a first-hand account into what those cultures looked like in 2 very different ones. You have LSU, which is, as big as it gets, and 13,000 people at every game. Then you have DBU that has, 2,300 kids that live on campus, and it's the only Division I sport on campus. And so, and then those 2, Jay and Dan, are very different as well. But the one thing that those programs have in common is an unmistakable culture where, to this day, you can see something happen and say that's DBU baseball, or something happen and say that's LSU baseball. And I think the thing, and again, really long answer to a really simple question, but I think to me, the measuring stick has our culture been implemented, and then have we protected it every day? And then is that measurable? And what are those measurables? Well, I think it comes back to what's the student athlete experience. And if the best player on your team who gets the most at bats is the only guy that's happy, that's really not the mark. And if the guy that never plays is the only guy that's happy, that's not the mark either. I think there's I've always thought of it as, regardless of playing time, regardless of at bats, regardless of whatever, are all the guys in the program having the same cultural experience? Are they equally invested? Are they equally valued? Do they feel like they are part of building that foundation daily? And that's the one where I can say unequivocally that we have given that opportunity to our players every day, and we've emptied the tank for them. I think the other part of that, Nate, is my staff. They've been with me since the get-go, and it's only 3 years, but if you look at how good these guys are, to have them for 3 years and to have them be not just here, but like I'm telling you, those guys have not taken a single day off since that first night that we were all together. They have their investment is incredible. Their family's investment is incredible. And so I think the thing that gives me the most excitement or joy or satisfaction with what we've done is that all of the human elements inside the program, all the people have been able to put their own fingerprint on it, and have been so invested. And when I look at my players right now, and we played better opening weekend, this year than we did last year or the year before, no question. And we are a better team, and we have more talent and depth and all that stuff. But to me, it's every single guy on our roster in our dugout right now is completely and totally invested in us winning games. And that's a culture thing. That's a feel thing. That's one guy's up to bat with 38 other guys right behind him. And that's something you can feel, and it's something we wanted to create from day one, and I really feel we have. Now, we got to protect it, because you can, you let that go for 5 minutes and you lose it. So I'm proud of how we've stuck to it, and we haven't come off the pedal.
Man, I geek out on this kind of stuff. I love taking notes anytime I get the opportunity to talk to a coach about how they build culture. And to me, look, I've been covering sports for over 30 years. I've seen a lot of winning, and I've seen a lot of losing. And sometimes I think fans or people that watch sports, they can touch and feel and taste the numbers. So they think that a lot of the culture talk is mumbo jumbo, or it's flowery language. If you don't have the culture right, you're not going to succeed. And so I love listening to how coaches envision their culture, and how I love that your phrase that you use, protecting it, because you can't just, our culture's built, now it's done. Right. Do you have, a lot of coaches will have 4 founding principles or 4 pillars of their culture, anything like that? Are there some things that if somebody were looking at your culture, like if you have an assistant coach that someday's doing a podcast and he's saying, I worked with Coach Fitz and his culture was always identifiable, what would you want that coach to say, you hung your hat on from a culture standpoint? You just mentioned part of it, that everybody is invested and everybody feels valued, right? From the best player on the roster to maybe the player that plays the least. Are there some other specific things that you really want to be like kind of your trademark as your culture?
Yeah. And Nate, I'd encourage you to have my assistants, because I think that the telling part of culture is, can it be explained, organically by the people who are involved in it and the people who are helping protecting it. And
I love that.
I'm tragically uncreative. Like it's honestly embarrassing. I can't draw. I can't, I tell the guys all the time, I'm sorry, I don't have like Omaha Challenge t-shirts and, the 365-day challenge to Omaha. Like I really have tried to simplify this thing into, our job is to be great today in the event that we get to do it again tomorrow, because we're really not promised anything. And I think what our guys would say is that we have an expectation of humility inside of our program, where we value that as not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. And that the two things that you have to be a Jayhawk are, you have to be an unbelievable teammate and you got to play your butt off. And now, obviously, a million things fall into that category. Like, if you're a great teammate, you're going to be on time. If you're a great teammate, you're going to carry your equipment and pick up after yourself. And if you play your butt off, that means you're going to run hard and all that stuff. So it covers a lot, but I've really found that, the expectation, and this is where I think my staff is really elite, is that in the recruiting process, we kind of put together hey, here's what we need. Here's who we are, here's where we're going, and here are the pieces that we need to get there. And then in the recruiting process, we talk to these guys and say, here's who we are, here's where we're going, and here's how you really help us get there. Now, our investment into you to get you to where you are and where you want to be is going to be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, blah, blah, blah. So we pair it together where guys that get in this program are not surprised by those expectations. So there are really a lot of rules, that we don't have to cover, because it's not a part of who we are. And I've heard it said that, your culture is moving daily. It's just whether or not you're moving it. And it's a bunch of sayings like that I am so protective of that, because, you can go through a slump as a hitter. You can get by with a bad swing for a while. You can play with your arm hanging a little bit, but it's really hard to play when you don't love your teammates and when your teammates don't love you. And so we protect that at all costs. But I think guys would echo thoughts like that. Now, because of my lack of creativity, they wouldn't say, hey, pillar one is this or pillar. Mm-hmm. And I wish I was good at that stuff, man. I've tried. It's so inauthentic that I just can't pull it. My guys would be like, who's this guy?
Yeah. Hey, to thine own self be true. You got to be real. I've already jotted down two of those quotes, though. I love the one about humility. As a person who's admittedly a little self-absorbed sometimes, I love that, not thinking less of yourself, but thinking less about yourself is a great quote. And I like that one about your culture constantly moving. And that brings me to something I want to talk to you about, because you're obviously killing it with the junior college recruiting. 3 years in a row, you've been ranked as the #1 JUCO recruiting class. As an aside, not to talk about myself, but just as an aside, I spent a lot of my childhood in Ark City, Kansas, which is the home of Cali County Community College, which is a major program. I know you've got a kid on your team right now from Cali, and I spent a lot of my high school days playing baseball at Kansas City, Kansas Community College, because I went to Bishop Ward, and you've got a kid from KCK as well. But when you're bringing that many transfers in, JUCO or otherwise, how difficult is it to accomplish what you're talking about? That culture, protecting it, but also making sure that all these new faces get on board and buy in. How is that? How are you finding that challenge?
I think back to as a young coach, I remember if I had the list of jobs that I didn't get in my life, it's laughable. I mean, I laugh at how confident I was when I was young, because I applied for some jobs that, looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. But some of the jobs I had, I remember Todd Rimas, the head coach at Kirkwood Community College. He was the head coach at North Iowa Area Community College in Mason City, Iowa. And he hired me, and I had zero experience. I had been a volunteer at Iowa for a year. I had worked in the Twins front office for a year, but I had never really recruited. And Elvis Dominguez, who's the head coach at Bradley, we were on the same staff together at Iowa, and he told me, hey, you can be a great hitting guy, you can be a great pitching guy, or you can be a great recruiting guy. And if you're a great recruiting guy, you'll always have a job, because it's getting good players is the name of the game. And so I remember being at NIAC with Todd, and I remember offering kids like $250 scholarships, and I thought it was the greatest deal of all time. Like, looking back, I'm like, so thankful I was that confident, but I believed in what we were doing, and I believed in what we were going to give, what we were going to empty our tanks for those kids to be able to watch them develop and help them. And those years in junior college, and John Coyne, my recruiting coordinator's years in junior college, Brandon, my pitching coach, was my assistant at DMAC. And then Tyler Hancock, who is he played at Cali. He's an Arc City guy. So we all have JUCO blood, and I think that experience is so incredibly helpful in modern baseball and really modern college athletics, where the portal is huge and the junior college stuff is huge, where you're bringing, like, we have 27 new players. Now, the beauty is we don't have to play in August. We get to practice August, September, October, November, into December, and then back in January. So it is a daily thing. But again, I am very simple in try to give the guys I don't ever want a player in a game looking towards the dugout for affirmation, or I don't want them to swing and miss and have them whip their head around to see what I'm thinking. Like, I want those guys on the field, and I just want them to play. I want them to be the freest version of themselves at that moment. And, well, how do you do that? Well, you have to let them be themselves in a lot of ways. So do I think we have some guys with some crazy hair? Absolutely. I could absolutely care less. They routinely show up with new tattoos. That's awesome. Whatever. But the non-negotiables with me are, do you play hard, and are you a great teammate? And I think those guys can see the simplicity of that and understand that, hey, man, these are the two hills that this program dies on. And other than that, they've got a lot of autonomy to do just about whatever they want, because, again, a lot falls into those categories. If you want to run hard at night and get distracted off the field and fuel your body with stuff that doesn't make you great, it doesn't really work in our program, because you need to be a great teammate and you need to play your butt off. And if you're doing that off the field, you're not going to check those two boxes. So I think the way we do it is we talk about it nonstop. We've got great older guys who model it, and our junior college guys and our portal guys, for the most part, are coming from places. And Nate, this is where, I feel like the most blessed guy on the face of the earth to be the head coach of the Jayhawk baseball program. We just have unbelievable people supporting our program. The off the field help in whatever category you can think of, academic, social, anything in regards to your physical training, your mental health, your physical health, your anything. We have amazing people at our players in their space all the time to help them become just, whatever they want to be with whatever they want to do with their life. And I think the guys understand what an amazing opportunity that is. And we talk a lot about, hey, this is going on a little bit of a rabbit hole, but the chances of a statue being built for any of us is so tiny. And I think about how many times you walk past. We were down in South Carolina a couple years ago playing, and we were walking through some town square or whatever, and there was a statue of some guy. I didn't even know who he was, and I'm like, I'm in my mid-40s, and I have no idea who that is. And so I tell the guys all the time, our legacy, hopefully our family, hopefully my wife, my kids, Lord willing, my grandkids someday, my brother, my nieces, nephews, maybe there'll be some massive impact. But outside of that, it's the people we touch on the day-to-day. It's our teammates. Tell the guys, no one's going to be talking about your stats in 20 years. They're going to be talking what kind of teammate you were. And they're going to remember our team. If we have a great team this year, they're going to remember the 2025 Jayhawks. They're not going to remember, so-and-so's double on opening night. Like, it's just, no one talks about that stuff. And it's been cool because the 93 Jayhawks, the only program to go to Omaha, they're a great example of that. Like, those guys are around all the time. They've been incredibly supportive, and they love reliving the success of their team. Those guys never talk about their individual accomplishments. So I think it's that full package that we tell the guys, like, hey, if you're coming to Kansas, man, you better be ready to work. You better be ready to be a great teammate, and you better be ready to go to bed really tired every night because you're emptying the tank for the guy next to you. And we keep it that simple. And so I think those JUCO guys are like, this is amazing. And then all the stuff that comes with it is awfully overwhelming.
Xfinity here. How can we help?
Hi, my daughter invited her entire class to her birthday party. Can my Wi-Fi handle it?
Oh, well, at Xfinity, our latest gateways have tri-band Wi-Fi technology, letting you connect hundreds of devices at once.
No way. So if all the kids are watching stuff on their phones, well, their parents are sharing videos online.
Yep, go ahead and watch videos. They can all do their thing and party their way. No problem.
Oh, we are gonna need a bigger cake.
Now through March 4th, get fast, reliable Xfinity Gig Internet for $25 a month for 1 year with no annual contract and Wi-Fi equipment included when you add an unlimited mobile line. And ask how to get an eligible free 5G phone with trade-in. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY or visit a store today. Restrictions apply. Requires PayPal and auto pay with stored bank account. Taxes and fees extra. After promo, regular rates apply. Xfinity Internet required. Reduced mobile speeds after use of monthly data included with your data option. Data thresholds and actual internet speeds vary.
I had this patient. His cancer treatment had him in the hospital for a while. One day, he was telling me about his grandson and how a big night was coming up for him. So we arranged to make it a big night for my patient too. I sometimes wonder if I'm doing all I can. Then I help make a moment like this possible, and I know I am.
Once again, we're visiting with baseball coach Dan Fitzgerald, and let's talk about one of the players, though, that you do have coming back, because he's obviously received a lot of accolades already from last season and then preseason coming into this year. And I want to make sure that I say his name right, but Dominic Voegele.
Voegele, yep, nailed it.
He's preseason Big 12 Pitcher of the Year as a sophomore. What makes him so special? And I guess just tell us a little bit about him and why fans should be excited to get a chance to watch him pitch sometime.
Yeah, I think Dom, I've been so blessed to be around great pitchers my whole career. I don't know that I've ever been around one that has better feel for the baseball in his hands. Like our director of player development, Ryan Holland, was playing catch with him the other day, and Dom decided to throw a knuckleball, and I mean, Ryan whiffed on it. It's 87 miles an hour and almost, broke Ryan's face. Any way that he grips a baseball and throws it, it comes out beautifully. And so he's got great feel for every pitch that he throws. He can command them in any count, and he's really physical on top of it. Like, he's a really good athlete. All of our pitchers think that they are good enough to be two-way guys, that they could just jump in the lineup and hit. Dom actually could. Like, he was a big-time hitter in high school, and he absolutely could have done both here. But I think the separator is that Dom Voegele is the exact same human being today that he was when he came on his visit during his senior year in high school. Like, he has not changed 1 ounce with all the success that he's had. And, I think of so many of the great players that I've been around. That's such a similarity that they have, where they don't get caught up in the success. They know that the success is a byproduct of how they've worked, the opportunity they've been given, and then how the team has played when they've actually been out there. And I think Dom understands that better than anyone. And he's just been an A-plus teammate and human being since getting to campus. And on top of it, he's just incredibly gifted. And it was really fun for me. I got to go down to Cary, North Carolina this summer to watch him pitch with Team USA. And, it was great. He's wearing the USA uniform and walks out to the mound like he was in, like it's a inter squad scrimmage at our field in the middle of October. He just calm as can be and diced him up. And then, he's a fantastic kid.
Well, that's great stuff. And it sounds like a great person. You talk about, handing that culture down to the next group of players. You put 8 guys into the pros from last year, as you mentioned, so 27 newcomers, a whole bunch of new position players, all that. I guess this is just kind of broad spectrum, but when you look at the team now, you've had a chance to watch your team on the field in some real games, just a few of them so far. What do you think are some of the things you're most excited about, that fans should be most excited about for this year's squad as you look at it?
Yeah. Opening night is always interesting because guys try to, I'm going to keep working on it, but it doesn't matter what you say about opening night. They make more out of it than it is. And they try to hit a grand slam with no one on base every at bat. They try to strike someone out with one pitch and in an 0-0 count. And it's just guys kind of freak out, which is why having Dom out there is so great, because he was just mellow as can be. But, you take away some hiccups on opening night, and we played pretty clean baseball. And I think the 2 things I was most impressed with were our consistency throughout the lineup to just put together quality at bats. And, we think there are about 8 ways to have a quality at bat. The obvious ones are you get a hit or you get a walk or you get on with an error. But then there's some other ones, an 8+ pitch at bat, exit velocity over 95 miles an hour. Do you force an error on defense? So there are some intangible ones in there too that you can hustle your way into a quality at bat as well. But I thought we commanded the strike zone really well on both sides of the ball. We had one blow-up inning on Friday night, and it was really, it was great because that same reliever came in on Monday and threw 3 pitches and got out of an inning. So, I think the way we commanded the strike zone offensively, we didn't chase, we took our walks, we were patient. But then when we had our chances to put in some knockout punches, we took them. Tommy Barth, hammers a huge double on opening night. Jackson Hauge cleared the bases later in that game. We hit, I don't know, was it three home runs the other night on Monday when the wind shifted and started blowing out. So I loved the consistency of the lineup, and I loved the way our bullpen came in and just threw strikes. And in the couple times that we walked a couple leadoff guys. They were so quick to get back in the zone, and our defense bailed them out multiple times with double plays, or it was strikeout, pop up, and kind of negates the walk. So we were super competitive in the zone. But honestly, man, our dugout was electric. Like, those guys were so into it, and it was genuine, and it was not gimmicky. It wasn't a hype video. Like, it was genuine joy competing together, which is, more than you can ask for on opening weekend.
Well, hey, when it's 20 degrees outside, you can't just sit down. You got to get up and move around.
Well, thankfully, Nate, the games were good. Friday got a little chilly. Saturday was beautiful. Sunday was beautiful. Sunday, I overdressed, man. I looked at the forecast and thought I was going to turn into a snowman, and I was sweating the whole game. And then we had another beautiful day. So just unfortunately, our practice days are the ones that get cold. But yeah, no, we were okay with the weather during the games.
Well, Coach, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate the time. I think it's a really exciting season up ahead. I hope the weather warms up for you guys down there in Texas. And then, we get some great weather in the springtime when you get into Hoglund. And I know there's some improvements. I wanted to mention that as well to Hoglund Ballpark. So maybe we'll wrap it up with that. New field coming in, a double the size of the video board as the old one. So those improvements, how excited are you about, you mentioned earlier, the support that you get from the university, having some improvements to the ballpark?
Yeah, the turf was a massive upgrade. Our surface, we took really good care of it. It was just really old. It was 15-year-old turf, and it was super hot. So any not hot temperature wise. Like I'm talking, you hit a ground ball, that thing was at the wall in like a second. So I think it's plays way more true now, just like a normal grass infield. Aesthetically, it's beautiful. The guys at Mammoth, they did just an incredible job of putting it in. It's one of the most beautiful surfaces in college baseball. And then our video board, same thing. It's massive. It's awesome. It's, it's tip of the spear, man, in terms of the technology. And I think when you're coaching in a game, I don't spend a whole lot of time looking at the video board other than numbers I need to see or whatever. But I do notice that when I'm out recruiting in the summer, or if I happen to go to a big league game, so much of the game revolves around the video board and the fan experience. So I do think that the fan experience is going to be very upgraded at the ballpark because of the new technology. And, there's more to come. We got a long way to go with everything inside the program, and we're going to continue to grow this thing as we go. But, those are two massive things that our administration stepped forward with. And, Travis Goff, he's absolutely incredible leader. And honestly, I'm so blessed to work for him. Sean Lester, an amazing sport administrator. And these guys are all in on their support of our program. And we walk arm in arm on this stuff every day.
Yeah, it's the athletics department's in the best hands it's been in. And I've been a fan / alum for a long time, and it's in a really good spot. And the baseball program is a perfect example of it. Coach, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the way in Texas, and good luck this season.
Thanks, Nate. Rock Chalk.
All right, Rock Chalk Jayhawk. We will wrap up the Jayhawker podcast here in just a second with our call of the game. Again, our thanks to head coach Dan Fitzgerald from the baseball team as they set a record for wins a year ago, and they're looking to do more here in 2025. And if you want to go see one of the top players in the entire conference, the Big 12 preseason pitcher of the year, he is at the University of Kansas, Dominic Voegele. So that's pretty exciting stuff as well. All right, before we wrap it up, we are going to sign off with our call of the game, which is brought to you by the Hilton President Hotel, the only hotel in the Power and Light District, just steps from T-Mobile Center. Over 200 rooms and suites to choose from. Call 816-221-9490 or online at presidentkansascity.hilton.com.
To Williams at the high post, faces up, fakes a shot, drives into two, turns, scores through the two defenders. The freshman Reagan Williams with the biggest basket of the night. Jayhawks by 2, 40 seconds to go.